Long-term insurance has received a record number of complaints. We're joined by Jennifer Preiss, the Deputy Ombudsman for Long-Term Insurance, and she joins me now in studio. Jennifer, thank you so much for the time. 186 million essentially for complainants that you were able to recover in a year like this. We were just speaking off air that you're not in a growth business. You're not trying to get more complaints coming through to you, but it is, however, a year where you saw a whole lot more come through. Do you want to just share to us exactly what the demographic of that sort of looked like in terms of complaints, what the main issues were?
Yes, thank you. So the main issues every year, it's claims are not being paid, and then people complain to us. And this year what we have seen as a trend is that there are far more complaints about funeral policies than any other type of product. So what happens is if you have a funeral and you had a funeral policy, you expect the policy to pay out pretty quickly because otherwise it's a crisis for people. So they complain, and we had 41% of the complaints were from people who had funeral policies.
I mean, one would perhaps not look back too far, for example, to have a case where one folk was unfortunately, it just seemed that social media then took a spiral and took a hit at that company, having, of course, gone sideways with regards to their claim and saying that the claim was not valid because they died of something else entirely. Would something like that still fall in your purview, and would people be able to complain to yourselves and speak about just exactly how that affects them, and what would the reparations still be for them in a case like that?
So non-disclosure cases, that was the case that I think you're referring to. We do receive those, and we certainly received more of those complaints since that case. But we apply the law. We also apply fairness when we look at a complaint like that, and we can't always help people. So at the moment the situation is that the law says that if you non-disclosed when you took out a policy and it's material non-disclosure, then the insurer can repudiate the policy. We apply our fairness jurisdiction and we say put the person in the position they would have been had there been a full disclosure. So if there would have been a loading or if there would have been an exclusion, do that at the time. And that is as far as we can assist people. But I think the message for people out there who have policies and are not sure whether they disclosed everything that they should have is to make sure that they did, to contact the insurer and to make sure that they disclosed everything.
I suppose the difficulty comes in, when you feel like you have disclosed everything and it just so happens to be, a slight error maybe of whatever the case might be. All right, so if I
can just answer that. If it's a slight error, that's not material non-disclosure. It's got to be something that a reasonable person would not have disclosed. So it's got to be something serious.
So what do we then count as a material non-disclosure?
It is an incident that a reasonable person in your position would have disclosed. So it won't be a minor issue. It will be something serious. And that is really what people need to look out for. And it needn't be that you are doing it fraudulently. It can also be negligent non-disclosure. And that's why I think it might be important, especially if you're older and that you've had medical problems, just to check what did you actually disclose.
Okay. Are you finding that you've had to educate people a little bit more ever since the debacle as well then with the non-disclosure case? Are you feeling that you have to kind of speak to a whole lot more people? And are you collaborating with other forms of either government as well, if need be?
Yes, we are. We've done articles about it. At the moment, the FSCA has got a work group looking at non-disclosure and whether there's a need for the legislation to be changed. But I think also there is more to be done. I think the more people understand about insurance, the better. It's very boring reading an insurance policy, especially if it's quite a long one. I understand that.
If anybody's ever read one, to be really frank.
They probably only read it when they need to claim. But the more people actually understand about insurance, the better, because then they know what they've actually bought, and then their expectations are not something that's not going to be satisfied.
You've already been a hive of information in the last couple of minutes, but to just reiterate and I suppose give our viewers some sense of understanding as well. Let's just give them some sense of who the Ombudsman for Long-Term Insurance is, when they can come to you in particular, and sort of a sense of awareness of what they need to be aware of in looking at their long-term insurance contracts.
So the Ombudsman is Judge McLaren. He's a retired judge. We're completely independent, so we're not beholden to the industry or to consumers. the important part for consumers is also that we are free service, so it costs nothing to come to us. And people should come to us when they've already tried to complain to an insurer and haven't been satisfied. Then is the time to come to us and to see whether we can help resolve the complaint.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. Really appreciate your time. An educational part as well to this. Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. Of course, Jennifer Preiss there is the Deputy Ombudsman for Long-Term Insurance.